Kia ora guys, and welcome back to the Black Jersey. My name's Max, I'm the host over here at this channel, and I am going to be having a bit of a day off the analysis today, but a massive thank you to my patrons as I stay at the start of every video. For the first time since before the World Cup began, I have a news update, and goodness me, we got some pretty hefty stuff in here. The 2027 draw date has been confirmed. A lot of new reports in World Rugby about a men's and women's international calendar. And of course, the dreaded Nations Championship that is yet to be named. There's a lot for us to get through in today's video, so just remember to like this video and subscribe to me if you enjoy my content. And now we'll start off with discussing, well, it's good to see that the 2027 draw for the World Cup has been confirmed, the date of it. So, according to Murray Kinsella, who's a very, very respected journalist, one of the few guys in the mainstream I listen to, I mostly consume independent rugby content creator stuff. He says that the draw for the 2027 World Cup will take place in January 2026. I've talked to a few insiders in the world of rugby, for example, Stephen, who's the Irish team's physio. Hopefully I can get him on the channel a few days' time or something like that, maybe a week or so, depending when he sees my message. But yes, according to him, a lot of the teams tend to start examining the World Cup about 18 months or so away. The Irish national team and their head coaches, they started examining what they could do for 2023 at the very, very beginning of 2022. So Murray Kinsella also says that it was felt that January 2026 was a fair time to do the draw because it means that the teams will have played the November tests, so the Six Nations will have not have started, so it allows the coaches a bit of time to get things going, just reading the notes off a phone, and I think it's a really, really good idea because it's perfect in line with what the coaches want to do, the visions they have and the way they want to prepare for those tournaments. It's also said by Kinsella that the World Rugby CEO felt that, doing it at the end of 2026, too close to the tournament for the fans to have a decent time to plan. That is absolutely valid. You have to balance between looking after the fans and looking after the teams. I think this is a very, very appropriate date, but preparation for this tournament, it's not going to exactly allow for the teams to organise the tours, those kinds of things that they would have liked, organise the end of year test fixtures, because, well, things are going to get very, very interesting. Details about the tournament though. It's going to be between the 1st of October and the 13th of November, so it's going to be a bit of a shorter time length. There are going to be a 6-week Rugby World Cup timeline, and that I think is very good for the fans. Like, you don't want World Cups to get too long, because me, for example, I've had a bit of a fatigue with 2023 covering so many teams, getting up at an unnatural time like 3 AM for myself, but the teams will be expanded from 20 to 24 teams. So the new format, it's going to have 6 pools of 4 teams. I think that's really nice because, we avoid the whole pool of death thing. Scotland might actually get a decent draw this time because Scotland, the whole pool of death thing has just done them so dirty. So round of 16 as well, that'll be introduced with top 2 teams from each pool automatically qualifying alongside the best 4 of the 3rd place teams. That's very, very appropriate for qualifying for the 2031 World Cup that will be hosted in the USA. So Australia 2027, I better start saving my cash because after the Lions tour I'm planning to go to, well, man, the World Cup's going to be really, really good. I'll get to see a lot of good stuff. Just as well, the Rugby Centre, who I've obtained these graphics from, Corey's a real nice dude. I've collaborated with him a few times. He's just got, of course, these pool stages here, just an exemplar for you guys. So, as we can see, we've got Pool A, B, C, D, E, and F. And as we can see, the 4 teams, he's just kind of done these hypothetically based on current world rankings, so we can kind of see how these pools would essentially function. And I think this is a really, really nice method because it allows everyone to get a pretty decent crack at one another without, creating too many upsets. And the round of 16, as we can see, this is just a hypothetical one based on World Cup placings. It'll allow, teams like Portugal, Georgia, Tonga, Fiji, they'll all actually be able to have a decent crack at, getting the upsets. and I'm absolutely stoked to see that scenarios like this one are possible. The women's calendar, though, I think we better talk about that one because this is very, very good for them. There's not really been too much organisation in terms of the women's game and actually, you know, getting proper fixtures sorted out. It's all just been left up to the individual unions, and I think this is going to change that. As Corey from the Rugby Centre has for us, the first ever dedicated international release windows, so regional release window of 7 weeks and global release window of 8 weeks from 2026. That's very appropriate because a lot of the players, they're going overseas to play club level rugby before they return home to their teams to play international rugby. Arabella McKenzie, who's the 10 for Australia, for example, she plays for the Harlequins over in England at club level, so it makes it really difficult for Harlequins to release her because she's contracted to play with Harlequins, but then she'll want to represent her nation out of pride. So that's leaving them with Karis Dellinger, who's not very experienced, a very young 10 that's still finding her feet at international level. And that'll, I guess, resolve a lot of problems such as that one that's happening right now. It's also going to be a clarity of release periods for club and league and cross-border competitions. It just allows, you know, as it says, that certainty of planning and investment. It's perfectly said, and while, you know, those international players are away from their club duties, it allows the clubs to blood the second and the third choice players, which is really, really good because in the women's game, we do need to have more of a better look at the third and the second choice players because, you know, players like Rosie Kelly, who I've had on the channel before, she's got a decent level of game time in the Black Ferns this year so far, but I would like to see players like Rosie get a bit more game time so we can really see their full capabilities at this next level. There's also this commitment to more effectively manage player load and welfare in the fast-evolving women's game, working with all stakeholders. I think that's really good as well because, you know, as commentators said during the 2021 World Cup played in 2022, women have brains too. They weren't really looking at the HIAs perfectly enough. You know, absolutely perfect comments. Great to see those happening. A framework as well to review the women's global calendar and international competition structures on an ongoing basis to recognise that fast-growing environment and opportunity. Perfectly done. Great to see attention's being paid into the women's calendar, but for the men's calendar, things are really, really heating up. There's going to be a lot of changes. There's going to be a lot of norms being broken, a lot of barriers torn down, but also for guys like Uruguay who are really starting to improve, Chile who qualified for the World Cup for the first time ever, a bit of a barrier is being put up for those guys. So I'm going to try and read this with a very small text. So the first ever global calendar for men's rugby with new competition and increased opportunity from 2026 with clearer international windows including confirmation of the release window for Rugby World Cup 27 in Australia, and obviously there's the expansion for the 24 teams in 2027, but there's also, as I was saying at the start of the video, the launch of a bi-annual new international competition from 2026 comprising a top division of 12 teams, and these 12 teams will be the Six Nations teams. They will be the SANZAR unions and 2 further unions to be selected with a process run by SANZAR, and then there's going to be a second division run by World Rugby of 12 teams with promotion and relegation commencing from 2030. So these will be kind of replacing the mid-year tests that normally happen in July, then the Autumn Nations series that normally gets played in November. So long story short, the door's essentially being shut on teams such as Tonga, Samoa, Portugal, you know, those teams who are really on the up right now, Georgia even. They're really shutting the chance for those teams to get time against Tier 1 nations. Although situations like the 102-0 by the All Blacks in Tonga in 2021, they're not ideal, but they do need to play the Tier 1 nations more often to get that growth happening, because every 4 years we can't just say, oh yes, awesome to see Tier 2 rugby, let's put more into it, then just let it slide and not talk about it for another 4 years. That kind of stuff, we can't let it happen, you know what I mean? And so, long story short to everyone watching this video, 2024 next year we'll have the mid-year tests, the end-of-year tests. Same in 2025 because there's a Lions Tour. 2026 we'll have the new competition without a name, probably going to be called the Nations Championship or something. It's almost a male version of the WXV that's happening right now here in Dunedin in New Zealand. And then in 2027, obviously the World Cup, there's going to be the warm-up matches for the Northern Nations happening at the same time as the 2027 Rugby Championship. 2028, we're going to have this Nation Championship played again 1 year on from the 2027 Rugby World Cup. 2029, we're going to have the tours obviously happening, so that end of year tests, the mid-year tests, including the Lions Tour. Then 2030, we'll get the Nations Championship, the third iteration of it. And during this third iteration, there's going to be that second tier with the teams such as the Samoans, the Chileans, the Portuguese, etc., who I keep mentioning. On to the next kind of part of this video. So the competition provides players and fans with compelling matches to build audiences and values for all. That's what it says, but is it really that compelling when you're already competing for a trophy when a World Cup's been established? The thing is with competitions like this Nations Championship and the WXV is, do they devalue the purpose of a Rugby World Cup? Because in these competitions, you know, it's implied there's going to be a trophy on the line. And, you know, if we're having kind of half World Cups, we're having these trial runs for the knockout stages, is the World Cup going to carry the same weight of expectations and the same hype? Oh, I'm not convinced there, man, you know what I mean? The last thing I want to talk about, though, is that obviously through the rugby column I've got over here, he's discussed how it's been approved by World Rugby fully, so it is 100% confirmed, and Fiji and Japan, they're going to be included. It's looking like they're going to be the two extra nations filling out the extra 11th and 12th spots, and so what this is going to do for the Pacific Nations Cup is, it's really mind-boggling to me, because here we go back to the Rugby Centre. He says that the launch of the new annual expanded Pacific Nations Cup competition in 2024 will happen. So the Pacific Nations Cup, it's going to become a big deal. It's going to get more important. The USA and Canada, they're going to be joining alongside the Fijians, the Japanese, the Samoans and the Tongans. So there's going to be 6 teams involved with that. The thing is, though, I've heard whispers that, you know, the South American teams aren't exactly too convinced by this because they're worried that it's not going to be as good with Fiji and Japan competing in the new global competition. And so what I'm really hoping here is that this release window here for the Pacific Nations Cup, it's going to be happening during the Rugby Championship or something. Another thing that's been noted is that it's going to be hosted by the Japanese, and the USA for the knockout stages. So they're all going to be in one place when it comes time for the knockout stages. So at least the Major League Rugby and the Japan League One, at least they're going to continue their prospering with more international rugby being held in those countries. The global men's calendar provides additional clarity for elite leagues and cross-border competition, supporting value, growth, investment, and opportunities for all. And so basically, what do I think of this? As listed in the thumbnail, what about us? What about us? Chile, Uruguay, and Portugal, Georgia, they're not going to be very impressed, man, because where does this leave them? The Rugby Europe Championship, a lot of the teams competing in that, such as the Spanish, are a bit amateur. They're not far along in terms of their development, and with fewer opportunities to play against the Tier 1 nations, like, for example, if Italy got end-of-year tour fixtures against, you know, a couple against Australia, then a few against the Tier 2 nations from, say, you know, Uruguay, Chile, then that's really good. It allows Italy to kind of get some wins under their belt, because obviously Italy don't tend to get a lot of wins. Italy, despite being a Tier 1 nation since 2000, haven't improved at all up until, you know, playing a prettier style of rugby under Kieran Crowley that was starting to look promising before the All Blacks absolutely just smashed Italy at the World Cup. Guys like Portugal, they're going to be aggrieved, and so there's a lot of good things to come out of this, but there's also a lot of bad things. You know, my concerns are going to continue being about, you know, will this devalue the Rugby World Cup? Who knows? I want you guys to kind of share your thoughts down below in the comments section. My comment sections are always open. I try to reply to the comments as much as I can. I want to interact with you guys, so definitely do share your thoughts down below after you like the video and give me the subscribe. I'll also just remind you, if you can afford to become a patron, there's no harm in joining up at all. You get early access to plenty of good stuff, including my team of the tournament for the Rugby World Cup, for example. My patrons got to see that one over there early. You can also check me out over on Instagram, over on Threads. I'm very active over on Instagram, so there we go, guys. That's how you support me. And guys, now that the video's over, let's continue to support rugby, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers from Max.